Hello everyone, this is a post-commentary video that I wanted to post up. I finally have some miniature progress to show you, and so I want to put a coinciding video with it. And this is going to be cut into the gameplay here, so if you can see, I'm already in a team, and that's because I attempted the hard mode stratagem, the weekly stratagem, where you get no contested health back, and you can, I guess, infinitely revive, but it's pretty rough. It was pretty rough. I attempted it multiple different ways. I used plasma weapons. I used heavy plasma because it was a Chaos Space Marine level, and I said, this is becoming more of a headache than fun. So I loaded up this ballistic engine stratagem mission, and it was just a 10-point normal one. And I thought to myself, well, it's ballistic engine, so might as well take bolter weapons for the Tyranids that I'm going to be facing. And I should have read the text where it said that the non-standard enemies will be throughout the level. So I took off all these plasma weapons, and gonna end up regretting that decision here soon. And getting back to the minis, I was working on a Blade Guard veteran, and I'm happy to report he is done. And now that I'm looking at the pictures, I can see that I forgot one last step, which was to go back over the gold areas with Seraphim Sepia to get the shade effect on the gold, and that'll be an easy fix here. But other than that, I'm pretty happy with the model. He's gonna need some transfers. You'll see his left shoulder. This came from the upgrade sprue, and I'm pretty happy that I have the matching shoulder pauldron, and that came from the upgrade sprue box. So it wasn't inside the kit, not that I was aware of. That came with the combat patrol box that these Blade Guard veterans were in. So if you want, I could be wrong here, maybe I didn't see it, but if you want the matching shoulder pauldron on the left with the Dark Angels, what is this, not stencil, embroiderment, I gotta look up that, then you should get the upgrade sprue. Now I believe there was 3 of them in there, so I'm lucky here because there'll be one for each of these Blade Guard veterans. And yeah, so I want to put one on that shield, that chest shield that he's got there. I'm not sure what that is called officially in the armoring world, but I want to put a transfer there as well. I don't know what, but something. Unless it's, I'm going to look up the rules to see if it's supposed to be painted a certain way, like a heraldry type deal. But yeah, so he's done. Obviously, with all my minis, I still need to base them. I'm really getting to the point where I'm about to finish the combat patrol, and none of these guys are based. So that'll be hopefully like a day or 2 project. Just putting all the technical paint down. I'm pretty happy with him. As you can see, he's done head to toe, at least as far as my skills can take me. I got the Seraphim Sepia, I used it as kind of like a bone shading, to kind of copy the effect that I was seeing on the box art. And he's completely done in ushabti bone, and then he's highlighted with Screaming Skull, and then on some of the more prominent parts, the parts that might catch the most light, I did a little bit of Korax white. And if you could see on his scabbard for his power sword, I saw on the box art, that it's brown, and I know that makes sense, but he is a Dark Angels guy, and I didn't see enough Dark Angels green on him, so I I took the liberty of making his scabbard a green color, and I don't know if that's a common thing to do or not, but it makes me happy. And yeah, so he's done. On to the next one. And now that I got a good idea of what goes where, hopefully I'll pump out the next one in maybe a day or two. Especially now that I have the I ordered some bottles, some dropper bottles. So I got prepared, pre-mixed colors to spray. So I can get the ushabti bone down. Oh, my ring notification went off. So yeah, after I finished this guy, I was pretty eager to get a video out, and I did record something, but I played like garbage, and I was pretty much a drag on my teammates, and it's just not content I want to post, but I will admit that it happened. So I played like ass, so there was a video that I ended up deleting, and I kind of said, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, I'll make it tomorrow, and tomorrow came, and I realized it was Thursday, the day before, or Thursday, and then Friday was Galentine's Day for my wife, and then Saturday was Valentine's Day. So I thought, okay, this is the perfect chance to surprise her with a miniature that she's been wanting done, that she's been too afraid of starting. And so Thursday evening, I put the base paint down, and 1 second. So I put the base paint down. Sorry about that, brick of Chaos Black, and I just let it sit overnight. And that Friday, when she went out with my sisters, went out with the girls to do Galentine's Day, I just gave her my credit card and told her to go buy the outfit, go get the nails done, do whatever you got to do, but don't be home, So I've started painting like a madman. I was working as fast as I could, from like 8:30 in the morning, all the way until about 9 o'clock at night. I was painting, and happy to report I got her mini done. Now, I know I'm not a popular streamer here, but in one of my first videos, I do remember saying something about how my wife is a big Blood Angels fan, and so she did end up buying the Combat Patrol for Blood Angels, one of these weekends, many moons ago. And so she put the captain together, and she hasn't put anything else together, but she put that captain together. She was so excited for him, and I got to work on it, and he's done. I don't have any progress pictures for this guy because I did it all in one big shot, and I must admit I didn't finish it that night. I was done up until the point where I needed to do the blood drops on all of his decorations, like the one on his forehead, his weapons, his belt, his right knee shield, and the knee plate, I'm saying. And so everything was done besides those guys, and I didn't finish those until Valentine's Day. And I did my best to get like a jewel effect that I was seeing on the box art, or the heavy metal style, because if you go to their website and you type in Blood Angels Captain, you'll see like they're representative of it. And I noticed that the jewels were a darker red, so I used corn red there. And then I saw that there was like a yellowish line to create like this shine effect that went around the right side of every jewel. And so I did my best to replicate that, just freehanding it, without like an official guide, just kind of seeing what was there and thinking to myself, well, how can I replicate that? And as far as the highlight goes on this guy, I mixed my own paint. It was it was Averland Sunset for the yellow, but it was too yellow as a highlight. So then I also did Evil Sun Scarlet mixed in there, and it gave me more of like an orange color, and I used that as the highlight, the brightest highlight. And then I used regular Evil Sun Scarlet as the chunky highlight. And you know, if you look at this guy, you'll see he has a lot of edges to paint, especially around that chest area. But he wasn't so bad. It wasn't so bad. I did black on the cape. That's what I was seeing, you know, from videos. And then I did the Screaming Skull white underlayer for that white color. And I did do a little bit of Eshin Gray shading on the top, and I just left it at that on the cape. And he's done, you know. And so this was a custom job, so I did it, you know. She ended up catching me after she came home from Valentine's Day, and she was like, so I did ask her, like, what color do you want the laurels on his head, you know, because the box art was showing green and she wanted gold. She likes gold. And so that was that. But that's my progress so far. I will get back on another Blade Guard veteran. I'm kind of making a goal of myself. You know, it is a Tuesday afternoon, and I want to say that by next week I will be done with the combat patrol. So that means I have to do 2 Blade Guard veterans and a Gravis armor captain for my Dark Angels. So that gives me about 2 days per mini, and I feel like the Vanguard veterans, or the Blade Guard veterans, you know, I feel like those will go by pretty fast, since, you know, I know what those, I know what paints I want where. Yeah, so that's the end of my blog section of this video. You know, let me know what you guys think, and you know, I'll be happy to keep posting. I'm not done painting. Even when I finish this combat patrol, I'm gonna keep going. You know, I'm gonna buy the next one and get to work on it. You know, I think that's I kind of like the idea that every video that I have some miniature to update you guys on, and so I'll try keeping that going. And then if we get back to the gameplay here, you know, this is pretty easy. I'm not gonna lie. You know, it was a lot better than the weekly stratagem on hard mode. I'll tell you that right now. That I didn't realize how much I rely on contested health. You know, I was pretty much used to taking some hits and being okay with tanking those hits, because, you know, I was gonna get it back on the back end from contested health. But when there is no way to regain contested health on that, especially on that weekly hard stratagem where the enemies were hitting so hard, it was an eye-opener. So here I am, and if you remember in the beginning of this video, you know, I took this bolter and chain sword, and, you know, because I thought I was gonna be running into Tyranids, and I ended up fighting Chaos Space Marines again, and I should have kept on that plasma kit, especially with tactical. And you know, funny enough, I don't think I changed over my perks as well, so I have the skill where, you know, plasma shots, charge shots take 1 less ammo, and that's doing me no good at all with these bolter weapons. But we're about halfway done with this mission already, and, you know, there was no ammo boxes, the little crates throughout the mission, so the only way to replenish ammo was through these weapon drop pods. Sorry about the ring noise. I thought I silenced my phone the first time it happened. Let's see here. Old man pressing buttons. There it is. So that's one way to replenish your ammo to full, was with the weapon drop pod, and then ammo boxes. You know, I was pretty proud about that dodge. You know, I hate these guys. the Zangar sorcerer, Zangar witches or whatever on the shields. You know, that's one of the first times I've ever got that dodge off. So pretty pumped about that. Now these guys, look at this. Whoa, just whoa. This is normal mode. You know, there was no extra damages or anything like that. And that happened so fast. You know, I was ready for the blocks. I was ready for the parries. You know, I was trying to, you know, kind of regain my, you know, my posture there, but you know, they took me down. And I think that's because, you know, some of their attacks, they don't have as many, what's the word I'm looking for here? With that blue ring that shows you that you can parry the attack. And, you know, so that's one reason I feel like some of those attacks might, you know, even though they're telegraphed, you know, you're trained for that blue ring. And yeah, so maybe it would be cool if they added that blue ring to kind of show you which attacks can be parried, you know, for some of those attacks that they got, those rushing attacks. But at the same time, you know, I'm a firm believer in get good scrub, you know. So you know, I want to get better, and so, you know, it's no big deal that they get you down. It's just practice. And, you know, because of how busy I have been with these painting things, and, you know, just being a dad and a husband, I'm not playing this game as often as I want, you know. So that's why I'm not getting the hands-on experience with these guys as I should be. You know, they've been out for a few months now. I mean, I think maybe about a half a year. And, you know, I've only gone against them a handful of times. So these horrors are good additions, you know, good switch up, good challenge. And so another kind of aside that I want to talk about is I never got to play the Tech Marine. I believe the private server is down, or the test server is down. And I saw that the announcement date is released. The Tech Marine will be dropped on the 26th of February. So I am pumped about that, and so is my wife Angie. You know, she plays Blood Angels, as I said before, but one of her favorite stories is that Tech Marine and the Dreadnought, Ignis, I believe his name is. You know, and she worked in the IT field, so she's, you know, was like kind of like a technician, you know, growing up. She did that for almost 15 years. 15 years in the IT field. You know, as a lady, you know, that can be pretty rough. And so, you know, she's pretty. She like identifies with a lot of like tech type, you know, job classes and stuff like that, and in games or characters who are, you know, who work and keep the computers going and stuff. And so she really likes the idea of a Tech Marine. She really likes Mechanicus, you know, not as much as she likes Sanguinius, but she likes the Mechanicus. And so she's pumped about the Tech Marine. And so, you know, I was thinking of maybe one day painting her up a Tech Marine as well. I love that woman, but I know she's never going to get to painting these minis. So it's probably going to be just more work for me. But yeah, so she's pumped, I'm pumped. You know, the Tech Marine looks good. The Omnisci Axe looks like it plays different. I saw it has like a rushing attack. It kind of reminded me of if you played a game called Monster Hunter, you know, when you play the Lance, which, you know, is my favorite weapon in that game. You know, there is a rushing attack in that as well. And along with that, you know, I'm not the biggest, what do you call it, the Raven Guard fan. You know, I think they're cool. I think Corvus Corax is cool, especially with what he might be now. You know, some kind of like loyalist warp entity now. He's fully embraced his powers and stuff like that. Chasing Lorgar around, turning into like a murder of crows. And if you haven't seen that lore, then you should kind of take a gander at it. It's pretty interesting what's going on here. And I think it just gives more weight to the idea that the Primarchs, their souls are like a combination of, their natural born soul, that would be given to any living human, and the idea that they may have, like minor chaos gods or minor warp gods infused into their bodies. And that's why they all have the special powers. And I can't get into it too much without refreshing myself, but I do remember reading something along those lines, or watching YouTube videos along those lines, that say that all the Primarchs may be housing some kind of a warp entity, like a minor god scale, and that's why they all have like special abilities. For instance, Corvus Corax, he could practically become invisible, even standing right next to you. He just made himself so imperceptible to you on some level, that even if he was standing right next to you, he was as if he was invisible. Like you would be seeing right through him, unless he wanted you to look at him. So, kind of defies the laws of reality there, right? He's right in front of you, but you just don't see him. Your brain won't accept that he's there. So yeah, we're at the end of this mission here. Now we have Tyranids. If you haven't noticed, I believe that's probably because this is a scripted event, and maybe at the start of this mission, only the Tyranids can rush, out of the sides of the level, and attack the train. But you will see here that some Chaos Space Marines will show back up, and we're going to deal with them. So yeah, I'm going to let this mission play out. I hope you stay till the end. There's not a whole lot to commentate on. This is a standard mission. If you've played this game, a few hundred times, you probably know that, the batteries are going to go out on the left and to the right, and you got to go to the console and charge them up. So there you go. There's an example of that. You'll see the ropes there, the power cables. They don't have a surge of lightning going through. So that's like an early indicator on what side to go to. And then you hit the console up and hold the zone. And I believe this is around where the Chaos Space Marines come from. And we'll start taking care of there. Yeah, just right in my face, So I could have swore he wasn't there 2 seconds ago. So, I was pretty surprised, and it was an unparryable attack, and I just ate that, melted to the face. But yeah, I hope you enjoy. I will keep updating people on minis, and I will let this mission play out, and hope to see you in the next one. And I said it before, and I'll say it again, but I will get these more frequent. These videos need to be coming out, preferably daily, but realistically probably 1 every 2 days, especially since painting can take hours, and those are the same hours I would have for playing video games. But I hope you stick with me, and I'll see you in the next one.
Detonation in 5. Race.